This is a full story. Puppy wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. Just after trying on the wedding dress, I was a little thirsty. Rockey went to the convenience store to buy me mineral water. I stood by the side of the road waiting for him. Suddenly, a middle-aged man rushed out and knelt down in front of me abruptly, with tears streaming down his face. "Mom, don't marry Rockey. He will kill you." I was stunned. I am only 23 years old. This man in front of me who looks nearly 40 years old and already has fine wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, crying and kneeling on the ground and shouting "Mom" at me? Who wouldn't be scared? Moreover, he is not a solid entity. There is a yellow halo around him, like a 3D projection. His unruly appearance is 7 or 8 points similar to Rockey's. There is even a bit of my shadow between his eyebrows. The man eagerly wanted to hug me, but his arm passed directly through my body. He seemed very sad. Tears flowed straight down his face. My whole body stiffened. He looked up at me, his eyes full of remorse. He called me again. "Mom, you must live happily and blissfully in this life. Don't marry Rockey. He will have women and illegitimate children outside." Before he could finish speaking, the halo around him gradually faded and completely disappeared on the spot. It was only a dozen or so seconds. Under the scorching sun, a chill ran down my spine. Looking around, the traffic was busy and pedestrians were in a hurry. Everything was as usual. The scene just now seemed to be just my illusion. Rockey came out of the convenience store. Wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans, he was simple and refreshing. As he approached me, he gave a naughty smile and stuck the ice-cold mineral water bottle on my neck. A bone-chilling coolness hit. Ouch, I was jolted, instantly pulled back to reality. After his prank succeeded, Rockey's eyes curved and he laughed even more happily. Were you chilled? But I didn't snatch the mineral water bottle and chase after him to hit him as usual. Instead, I stared at him in a daze. Rockey's smile gradually subsided. He reached out and touched my cheek. "Why is your face so pale? Did you get heatstroke?" As if possessed, I asked a question. "Will you have an illegitimate child outside after we get married?" Rockey was stunned at first, and then was amused. It has always been him chasing after me and thinking of ways to please me. I didn't expect that I would ask such an insecure question. "Haley, what are you worried about?" Rockey's mouth curled up and he deliberately lengthened his tone. "Are you afraid that I will be charmed by wildflowers outside and give you an illegitimate child?" I pursed my lips and didn't answer. I just looked at him quietly. "Are you serious?" Rockey widened his eyes. "What are you thinking? Can't you feel my love for you? Do you want me to cut open my heart and show it to you? Even if time could flow backwards, I could never betray you. And as for an illegitimate child, the mother of my child can only be you." He affectionately put his arm around my shoulder and gave a loud kiss on my cheek, finally making me laugh. Rockey and I are childhood sweethearts. Since I can remember, he has been chasing after me with a runny nose. After going to school, no one dared to bully me because Rockey would stand up for me. He has a rebellious personality and his hobbies are diverse. He is only enthusiastic about everything for 3 minutes. Only in loving me has he persisted for many years. In the 3rd year of high school, in order to catch up with my grades, Rockey studied hard and forgot to eat and sleep. As expected, on the day before the college entrance examination, he fell ill. He performed poorly in the college entrance examination. Under great pressure, he repeated for a year and finally was admitted to the same university as me. In the junior year, I went mountain climbing with my roommate. Halfway through, there was a sudden rainstorm. My roommate and I temporarily found a small store in the scenic area to take shelter from the rain. While my phone still had power, I sent a message to Rockey to let him know I was safe. Later, the rain got heavier and heavier. My roommate and I made the worst plan to spend the night in the mountains and wait for rescue. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Rockey was completely soaked by the heavy rain. His messy hair was stuck to his cheeks mixed with mud. Panting, he appeared in front of me. He appeared together with the faint sunrise. I was extremely surprised. "What are you doing here? It's so dangerous. What if there is a landslide?" Rockey was uncharacteristically sullen. He wanted to hug me but was afraid of dirtying me. "I was worried about you. If something happened to you, I wouldn't want to live either." My eyes became hot and I hugged him tightly without hesitation. After this incident, everyone said that Rockey is Haley's licking dog. Rockey was not only not angry but also grinned foolishly. "Haley, I am willing to be your dog." Rockey's mother sometimes joked, "Our Rockey can only be tamed by Haley." At this time, my mother and Rockey's mother would smile knowingly. From the innocence of childhood to the persistent and passionate youth, I can clearly feel Rockey's love for me. At 23 years old, Haley also loves Rockey unreservedly. So, regarding the strange scene of seeing that man during the day, I tried my best to convince myself There is something wrong with my brain. Perhaps it is due to the pressure of preparing for the wedding that I had an illusion. That night, in my sleep, those red eyes appeared again. The sadness in his eyes didn't seem like an act. He still called me, Mom. I was awakened and cold sweat soaked my back. As I tossed and turned, I couldn't help thinking, should I rather believe it than not? I was restless and didn't sleep well all night. After waking up, I sat in front of the dressing table and used foundation to cover the tired traces under my eyes. Today is the day when Rockey and I go to sign the prenuptial agreement. My family is mainly engaged in the production of electronic product components. The art group is involved in the trade of electronic products. The two families are in the same industrial chain. The prenuptial agreement is required by the elders of both families. It's not that they don't trust each other. It's just that after years of struggling in the business world, they are used to writing down negotiated matters in black and white. Having a written guarantee will make people feel more at ease. Of course, I have no objection to this. But Rockey was very unhappy. What's this? Separating the money so clearly. Is it interesting? Getting married is like calculating against each other. We are a family. Since we have decided to get married, we should trust each other unreservedly instead of relying on these cold clauses to restrain and guarantee anything. I love you as a person, understand? Until we walked into the law firm. Rockey still had a sullen face. In the conference room, besides the two of us, there were also lawyers from both sides. On the table were 2 stacks of thick prenuptial agreements. Rockey frowned. Change the clause. No matter what situation leads to the breakdown of our marriage in the future, I will voluntarily leave the house with nothing. Rockey's lawyer was slightly stunned, still maintaining a professional smile on his face. Mr. Rockey, you need to think carefully. If there is really an unpredictable situation in the future, you may face a great loss. Rockey waved his hand casually without caring. There is no risk, because Haley and I will never get divorced. I have absolute confidence in our relationship. After saying that, he held my hand tightly. A firm strength came from his palm. The afternoon sun shone on his angular profile. The gaze looking at me was full of love and certainty. At this moment, I felt very at ease, and I couldn't help feeling a little guilty. For an illusion that lasted only a dozen or so seconds, I actually wavered in my trust in the person beside me for more than 20 years. Isn't my will a bit too weak? My rights and interests were fully guaranteed, so my lawyer didn't speak. Rockey's lawyer fulfilled his duty of reminder and naturally would not go against the will of the client again. The agreement was quickly revised. Rockey didn't even look at it and signed it with a wave of his hand. That man never appeared in my dream again. After marriage, the businesses of the two families began to integrate, and both Rockey and I became very busy. The first quarrel occurred in the 5th month after marriage. I was pregnant. Before marriage, Rockey and I agreed that career should be the top priority. We would consider having a child in 2 years. At that time, he pondered for a while. The emotions in his eyes were obscure. He said, "Okay." I thought we had reached a consensus. So when my menstruation was a week late and I saw the 2 extremely clear red lines on the test strip, my first reaction was shock. Many years later, I learned that Rockey had tampered with the condom, but at that time, I never thought that he would use such a despicable means to deal with me. Just when I wanted to tell him that I would find time on the weekend to go to the hospital with him for an abortion, Rockey saw the test strip in my hand. His eyes lit up amazingly in an instant. Excitedly, he picked me up and spun me around. "Haley, we have a baby. We are going to be parents." But I wasn't happy at all. We clearly agreed not to have a child so soon. What should we do now? Rockey stopped and put me on the ground. His tone was very serious. "Haley, this is a gift from heaven. It is the baby who chooses to come to us at this time. Are you not happy?" I pushed him away. My face was a bit ugly. "Let me think." Rockey's face also darkened. "You hesitated? Haley, don't you want this child?" I felt a burst of irritability. This all came too suddenly. "Can you give me some time to think about it? We clearly plan to focus on career. Now this child has completely disrupted our rhythm." Rockey took a step forward. His tone was excited. "Don't worry about the company. I'll take care of it. I just want to have a home with you and a child. Is this too much to ask?" I took a step back. "Don't touch me. Let me be alone." Later, the doctor said that I was naturally weak and not easy to get pregnant. And under the strong request of the elders of both families, I still kept this child. During pregnancy, Rockey took meticulous care of me. He accompanied me to prenatal checkups, learned pregnancy knowledge, told stories at night to help me sleep. When I was craving food in the middle of the night, he would immediately get up and drive out to buy midnight snacks. Pregnant women in the same period all envied me for having such a good husband. To a certain extent, Rockey did relieve my pregnancy anxiety. After 10 months of pregnancy, I gave birth to a boy. Rockey named him Jack. After the postpartum confinement, I was almost never idle. Ladies have things to do. Expand relationships, maintain contacts, and connect resources. I am using my strength to make Rockey have no worries at all. In terms of family and career division, Rockey and I cooperate very well. He is still a perfect husband in front of me. Not only can't find any faults, but he is also more calm and steady, gradually getting rid of his impetuous and impulsive side. Everyone praises that Rockey is a perfect husband. I am still convinced that he loves me. But in one's life, there will always be things that slap one in the face. When Jack was 3 years old, Rockey went on a business trip overseas. I drove out in his newly bought Bentley. When I put my bag on the passenger seat, I saw a rose-red lace panty. I couldn't bear it. With my character, I would never endure it. I immediately took a photo and sent it to Rockey. I called him. The beeping sound indicated that the other party was turned off. Only then did I realize that he was still on the plane and hadn't landed, so I canceled my plan to go out. I went home and told the nanny to pack up. Jack had a lot of toys. Just packing up his things took an afternoon. At 4 o'clock, I drove to pick up Jack from kindergarten. Jack, who was over 3 years old, was lively and active. He inherited his father's full energy. He showed me the handicrafts he made in kindergarten in a babbling way. I was uncharacteristically not teasing him. I picked him up and walked towards the parking lot. Jack keenly sensed my abnormal mood. His little hand hugged my neck. "Mom, are you not happy?" Jack was very obedient in kindergarten today. The teacher also praised me. I forced out a gentle smile. Mom is not unhappy. Mom is just a little tired today. I took Jack back to the apartment I bought before getting married. That night, Rockey finally landed and turned on his phone. He called me. His voice was anxious. "Haley, listen to me explain. This is a misunderstanding. It's me." My hand holding the phone was trembling. My tone was angry. "Misunderstanding? What kind of misunderstanding would make a woman's panty appear in your car? Rockey, do you think I am blind or stupid?" Rockey was speechless for a moment. No, I didn't check carefully at that time. I was amused by his words. "Didn't check carefully? Are you regretting not cleaning up after eat? Don't say anything. The child belongs to me. When you come back, we will get a divorce." "There is nothing to say, Rockey. I am so disappointed in you." Rockey yelled on the other end of the phone. "Divorce? I will never agree to divorce you." I directly hung up the phone. The phone fell on the floor. I slowly slid down along the wall and hugged myself. Various pictures kept flashing in my mind. The sweetness and trust in the past seemed to turn into sharp thorns at this moment, stabbing me painfully. Tears fell to the ground one by one. Jack heard the commotion and ran out of the room to hug me. In a milky voice, but full of momentum, he said, "Mom, who bullied you? Tell Jack. Jack will protect you." He gently wiped my tears with his little hand. "Mom, don't be afraid. Jack is a little man and will always be with Mom." I forced out a smile and comforted him that Mom was fine, but he didn't believe it. His big black jewel-like eyes blinked and stared at me full of worry. I looked up at the clock. Realizing that it was getting late, I took Jack to the bedroom to lull him to sleep. I sat by the bed, gently humming Jack's favorite lullaby, patting his back, and watching his eyelids gradually become heavy, and he fell into a sweet dream. After covering him with a quilt and kissing his forehead, when I stood up and turned around to turn off the light, I was so scared that my soul almost flew away. The man I met on the street 4 years ago appeared again. He stood by the door, surrounded by a warm yellow light. There was still longing and grief in his eyes. He choked and said, "Mom, I haven't heard this lullaby since I was 5 years old." Even though 4 years had passed, I was still extremely shocked by the scene in front of me. However, I was a little calmer. I led him to the living room and noticed that his right foot was a bit lame. I already had a guess in my heart and asked him, Are you Jack?" He walked to the small rocking horse and sat cross-legged. He tried to reach out to push the small rocking horse, but his finger easily passed through the wooden outline. He gave a bitter smile. "Yes, I am 45-year-old Jack. Mom, you didn't listen to me and still married Rockey." I stared at him in a daze. 45-year-old Jack had a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose. He was wearing a simple white shirt and matched with suit pants. There was a calm temperament between his eyebrows. "So this is what Jack looks like when he grows up." My voice trembled. "You came back because you knew early on that Rockey would cheat and our marriage would be unhappy?" I paused. My voice was a bit hoarse. "You also said he would kill me?" Jack nodded and gave a wry smile. "Yes, so I desperately came back to stop you." I was shocked. Then how did I die? Jack said slowly. Rockey insisted on not divorcing. You fought a lawsuit for 2 years. After the court ruled for divorce, he set up a scene of accidental death and killed you. He said he loved you so much that only when you died would you not leave him. After you died, the personal accident insurance paid a large sum of money, which became the startup capital for the R Group to launch a new project. Grandpa and Grandma's company was also completely annexed by him. My mind went blank for a moment. I couldn't believe that Rockey could be so crazy. He cheated and betrayed me. I definitely want a divorce, but I can't imagine that Rockey would kill me so cruelly. I can't help but think of many reports of wife-killing cases. Before those women died, did they have the same feeling as me? They couldn't believe that their pillow-side person could be so heartless. For some reason, I always feel that Rockey's motive is not so simple. Perhaps Jack believes that Rockey killed me because he loved me too much. But in these 3 years, Rockey and I have talked more and more about business and less about feelings. His focus is almost all on his career. I inexplicably thought of that prenuptial agreement. A chill ran through my heart. I had another guess. According to my character, I probably insisted that he leave the house with nothing. He couldn't bear the huge property, so he killed me to end it all. I was pale. After a long while, I asked again. At that time, you were only 5 years old. Who took care of you? Jack smiled faintly. At first, Grandma took care of me. Later, the woman he kept outside finally entered the house. One after another, she gave birth to 3 more children. That woman wore your jewelry and your clothes. I couldn't bear it and pushed her. As a result, she lost a child. Rockey couldn't tolerate me. Grandma took this opportunity to forcibly take me back. Mom, I hate Rockey. I wish he were dead. At this point, Jack's eyes were red and his fists were unconsciously clenched. My mind was in a mess. I tried to calm myself down. Who is that woman? What's her name? Jack gritted his teeth and said hatefully, her name is Serena. She is Rockey's personal secretary. A youthful and invincible face appeared in front of my eyes. It's her. Rockey told me that Serena is outstanding in work ability, so he promoted her exceptionally to be his personal secretary. As soon as she was close to his bed. I laughed absurdly. Jack told me many more things, until he was about to leave. I pointed at his right foot and couldn't help asking, how did you hurt your foot? Jack's expression was very calm. Rockey's illegitimate child spoke ill of you in front of me. When I argued with him, he pushed me onto the road and I was run over by a car. What? My voice suddenly rose. I was extremely heartbroken. It's okay, Mom. I'm already used to it. Jack smiled at me. Remember what I said. Don't repeat the mistakes of fate. After saying this, Jack disappeared. The living room was quiet. The wind blew the white gauze curtain. It was as if he had never been here. Rockey hastily booked the nearest flight and flew back from abroad overnight. He searched from our house to my parents' house and finally came to this apartment. Unshaven and with haggard eyes, it was obvious that he hadn't slept all night. Haley, I was wrong. Don't be angry anymore, okay? I was very calm. Who is that woman? Rockey swallowed. It was just randomly called on an app. Only that one time. I am a man and have that kind of need. It was just a moment of confusion and seeking excitement. I have absolutely no feelings for that kind of woman. Believe me. I looked at Rockey's lying appearance. Another sharp pain stabbed in my heart. He was still lying to me. Even now, he still won't confess Serena's existence. What is he afraid of? Afraid that if I find out, their little lovebirds will be forced to break up? I coldly smiled. Okay, since that's the case, I will find someone else too. From now on, we'll each play our own games. No. Rockey instantly flew into a rage and shouted loudly. How dare you? I will kill you. The threat in his eyes didn't seem fake. Since I found out about Rockey's cheating, it seems that I have gradually seen the dark side that he has never shown in front of me. I couldn't hold back my anger. With wide eyes, I glared at him without fear. Why? Only the officials are allowed to set fires while the common people are not allowed to light lamps? When you were rolling in bed with another woman, why didn't you worry that I would kill you? I just won't allow it. Rockey's eyes were red and he tightly choked my neck. The loud quarrel scared Jack, who was playing in the room. When he ran out, he just saw the scene of Rockey choking me. He immediately burst into loud cries and rushed over to kick and hit Rockey. Bad daddy, let go of mommy quickly. Only then did Rockey suddenly let go and wake up from his madness. I couldn't care about the pain in my neck. I picked up the crying Jack and patted his back to comfort him. Jack, don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Rockey rubbed his face with his hands and said with guilt, sorry. I didn't pay attention to Rockey. I carried Jack back to the room. After spending some time calming him down, I locked his children's room. When I came out, Rockey was sitting on the sofa. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, I directly slapped him and lowered my voice. You're crazy. How dare you hit me? His right cheek was scratched by my nail polish, leaving a long blood mark. He gave a helpless smile. Are you less angry? If not, slap me a few more times. I was too lazy to deal with him and turned and entered the study. According to the advice of 45-year-old Jack, I bought many stocks. In the evening, perhaps due to being frightened, Jack had a high fever. I was extremely anxious. I kicked awake Rockey, who was sleeping on the sofa, and asked him to drive us to the children's hospital. When we arrived at the underground garage, he walked towards the Bentley. I said with sarcasm, "Drive my car. I think yours is dirty." Rockey paused. "I will sell that Bentley tomorrow." I was afraid that Jack's high fever would recur. To be cautious, I decided to stay in the hospital for observation for one night. Rockey and I were guarding by the hospital bed. Several times he opened his mouth as if he wanted to talk to me but didn't know what to say. I also felt melancholy. I didn't know why we had come to this point. The scenes from our youth played in my mind like a movie. I once thought that I could walk with him forever. Unexpectedly, lasting love couldn't withstand a momentary excitement. I gave a bitter smile. In the ward, only the sound of the instruments and Jack's even breathing could be heard. We were silent like this all night. The next day, when we were discharged from the hospital, Rockey was holding Jack, whose arm was stuck with an indwelling needle. I was holding the medicine and walking beside them. When we were leaving the hospital gate, I saw Serena. She was wearing a dress. Her long hair was slightly curly and her makeup was light and pure. Indeed, she was young and beautiful. Rockey's body stiffened slightly and his expression was a bit complicated. Serena seemed to have not expected to see us here either, but she still came over gracefully and greeted us. Then, she smiled and asked Rockey. "President Rockey didn't reply to my message because the child is sick?" Rockey's tone was cold and distant, keeping people thousands of miles away. "Secretary Serena, pay attention to your words." He was warning Serena not to cause trouble. Serena curled her lips in sarcasm. "Really? I thought as a personal secretary, my duties included handling the boss's personal affairs." Rockey didn't look at her anymore and turned to look at me. "Let's go." But Serena reached out and stopped us. "Don't leave in a hurry. President Rockey, don't you ask what I am doing at the hospital?" I was already a bit impatient. I reached out to take Jack. Rockey held the child tighter and didn't let me take him. He frowned and his eyes showed disgust. "This is a children's hospital. Are you crazy to come here for treatment?" Serena ignored Rockey's sarcasm. She blinked her innocent big eyes. "I am pregnant. Of course I come to the obstetrics and gynecology department of the children's hospital for examination." There was a 10-second silence. Rockey's face was livid. "Secretary Serena, if you still want to work at the R group, deal with this child yourself." Serena was also stubborn and raised her pointed chin. "What if I must give birth?" She was really young and quite brave. Or perhaps, she was relying on Rockey's love and acting spoiled. I quietly looked at them. My heart was ice cold and I didn't want to waste time watching them act. What was annoying was that I still had to pretend not to know their messy affairs at this time. I simply took out my phone. "Congratulations, Secretary Serena. This is a happy event. Why don't we add WeChat? I am experienced. If you have any questions, you can ask me." Serena looked at me and smiled brightly. She said meaningfully, "That's great. I really have a lot of questions and want to ask Mrs. Rockey." We both ignored Rockey's stop and successfully exchanged contact information. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, Rockey and I were having dinner. Serena sent me a message. "Sister Haley, my boyfriend doesn't want this child and won't accompany me for prenatal checkups. What should I do? Do you have any good ideas?" I looked at Rockey across the table, put down my chopsticks and replied, "Then you have to be tough. If he doesn't want the child, make a fuss with him. How can you let yourself be wronged when you are pregnant? I can't stand this kind of anger." When I was pregnant, President Rockey didn't miss a single prenatal checkup. Covering mouth and laughing.jpg. Not long after the message was sent, Rockey's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and hung up the call. The phone kept ringing. He walked to the balcony irritably. The soundproof glass on the balcony was of such good quality that only faintly could be heard Rockey furiously yelling, "Get lost." He stayed on the balcony for a while, watching the sun gradually set. After coming out, he picked up the coat on the sofa and said to me, "There is something wrong with the company. I'll go out for a while." I didn't express an opinion. When Rockey was about to leave after changing his shoes, I casually said, "If you walk out now, don't get lost and can't find your way home." Rockey paused and stood at the entrance. The warm yellow light shone on him but couldn't dispel his gloomy face like ink at this moment. "I know what I'm doing." After saying that, he left without hesitation. A message from Serena popped up on my phone. "That's so nice, sister. Your trick really works. My boyfriend is here to accompany me." An hour later, Serena posted a moment on WeChat Moments. The picture was of a man's hand unpacking a takeout box of chicken soup. On the slender ring finger was a wedding ring. It was the wedding ring of Rockey and me. I didn't want to pretend to ignore this provocation or beat around the bush with Serena. Secretary Serena, the boyfriend you mentioned wouldn't be my husband, right? I watched the other party is typing on the chat box, flashing for a long time. Finally, Serena admitted it, and her attitude was still very arrogant. Yes, you guessed it. I was still wondering when you would find out. She sent me another video. Rockey was sitting on the sofa, smoking irritably. Half of the chicken soup on the table had been drunk. Upon careful observation, one could also see the packaging box of a condom in the trash can next to the coffee table. I was a bit stunned. Since I got pregnant, Rockey had quit smoking. It turned out that he just didn't smoke in front of me. At Serena's place, he could relax and be himself freely. I suddenly realized Rockey gradually becoming stable, self-restrained, and restraining his desires were all my illusions. He used his willful side and boundless energy on Serena. Serena, his heart is no longer with you. I am younger and more beautiful than you. I have more tricks in bed than you. Rockey loves me. He can't live without me. I sneered. Leaning on the sofa, I found a comfortable sitting position. Is your child also Rockey's? Serena, of course. He was my first. He must be responsible for me. Very good. I immediately forwarded this chat record, along with that picture of the rose-red panty, to the Love Each Other as a Family, a group. At that time, my dad and Rockey's dad were chatting enthusiastically. They were preparing to enroll Jack in a Go class and were discussing which famous teacher was more suitable for enlightenment. In an instant, the group was as silent as snow. Rockey certainly saw it too. I don't know what happened on Serena's side. She didn't reply to my message anymore. The old house of Rockey's family was brightly lit. When Rockey hurried over in a panic, what he saw was me and both sets of parents sitting upright on rosewood chairs. I looked at him coldly as he knelt on the ground. Rockey's father was so angry that his face was flushed. He picked up a bamboo stick and hit Rockey. You bastard, doing such a shameful thing. Are you worthy of Haley? Are you worthy of this family? How did I educate you since you were young? Have responsibility and be loyal. Where did you forget all these? How did our family produce such a worthless thing like you? Abandoning a good wife and son and getting involved with those messy people. You must deal with that woman and child outside. Otherwise, I don't have you as a son. The bamboo stick landed heavily on Rockey's back, making a shocking dull sound. Gradually, bloodstains seeped out on the shirt, which was shocking. Somehow, I seemed to see 16-year-old Rockey who made a mistake. But I no longer protected him and pleaded for him. I just sat quietly on the chair and watched him being beaten. Rockey clenched his teeth tightly. Sweat dripped from his forehead. He remained silent all along, until Rockey's mother couldn't bear it anymore. Tears welled up in her eyes. That's enough. Are you going to beat him to death if you continue? Only then did Rockey's father stop. He threw the blood-stained bamboo stick on the ground and was so tired that he was panting. The living room was quiet again. Everyone was waiting for me to speak. Rockey spoke first. His tone was very sincere. Haley, I went to find Serena today just to make it clear to her completely. Let her abort the child in her belly and completely cut off contact. I really didn't expect her to say those things to you. I asked him, is that rose-red panty Serena's? Rockey's face was ugly. Yes. My face was very cold. So you lied to me at the beginning. Were you planning to hide your affair with Serena so that you could continue having an affair conveniently? Rockey interrupted me abruptly and blurted out the truth. No. I just didn't want you to misunderstand too much. I was planning to solve this matter quietly. If I had known that Serena was such a scheming woman, I would never have touched her in the first place. I laughed incredulously. You are regretting that you weren't careful enough and that you chose the wrong Serena, instead of regretting that you cheated and would be sorry to me? If Serena hadn't left her panty and hadn't sent me those messages, would you still plan to continue your double life, enjoying the warmth of family while enjoying the excitement of an extramarital affair and even carelessly having a child? Rockey's face turned pale. No, I took precautions very well every time. I never thought she would get pregnant. Enough. I don't want to hear these disgusting details. I interrupted him. Just talk about what to do. Rockey raised his hand and wiped the thin sweat on his forehead. I will make Serena abort the child, fire her from the company, and completely cut off contact with her. Haley, as long as you don't mention divorce, you can have any compensation you want. Compensation? I didn't want to come to the step of compensation, so muddled. The guess in my heart still wanted an answer. I asked. You don't want a divorce because of the prenuptial agreement, right? He suddenly raised his eyes and then immediately averted his gaze. Of course not. I don't want a divorce because I love you. Lying. When he lied, he never dared to look directly into my eyes. After 4 years of struggling in the business world, he has changed from young Master Rockey to President Rockey. He has long been used to weighing pros and cons. How could he not consider property issues? My gaze cooled down inch by inch. Rockey also knew me well. Seeing my expression, he realized that I had seen through his lie. He hurriedly explained. I admit that I did consider the prenuptial agreement, but that is really only a very small part. Our relationship over so many years, and the child. The cooperation between the two families is so close. These are what I care about. How could I divorce you because of a little secretary? Serena is just a plaything to relieve loneliness. She can't compare with you. I laughed softly. Tears flowed down unconsciously. I understood. Rockey refused to divorce because the sunk cost was too high. He couldn't bear the wealth he had worked hard for over the years. He couldn't bear the contacts I held. He couldn't bear the relationship he had cultivated over the years. He pondered and considered and only came up with the answer of not wanting a divorce, but never considered my feelings. In Rockey's pitch-black pupils reflected a me who was crying and laughing at the same time. I said, okay, from today on, all your credit cards will be suspended. As compensation, the shares under your name will be transferred to me. I will forgive you this time. If you don't agree, we will get a divorce. Rockey's parents' faces were livid, but they didn't refute. Rockey and I each hold 10% of the shares of the R Group. The rest are under Rockey's father's name. Even if I take this 10%, I am not the largest shareholder of the company. This compensation won't pose any threat. Rockey glanced at his parents. In the end, he gritted his teeth and agreed. The 45-year-old Jack once told me that during the 2 years when Rockey and I lived separately, it gave Serena an opportunity. So before I completely take over the R Group, I will endure the nausea and continue to live with him. After all, just thinking about after I die. Serena wearing my dress and showing off with my jewelry makes me angry. Moreover, her child also hurt my child. I can never tolerate this scene. On the way home by car, I was very calm, but Rockey's face was very ugly. Why was he unhappy? I couldn't figure it out. For such a serious matter as cheating, I had forgiven him. What else was he dissatisfied with? Probably because he was distressed about that 10% of the shares. I turned my head to look at the night view outside the window. The night was already deep. The light of the street lamps flashed before my eyes, pulling out hazy streaks of light and shadow. I thought this matter was over. From now on, Rockey is a stranger living under the same roof as me. After returning home, the nanny had already rested. I took a set of bedding and went to the study. After coming out, I looked at Rockey, who was struggling to apply medicine while looking in the mirror. My tone was calm. From today on, we will sleep in separate rooms. If you have needs, I allow you to spend money and solve it outside. But don't touch me again. I'm afraid of getting sick. And also, don't use the bathroom upstairs anymore. Use the one downstairs from now on. Rockey's hand applying medicine paused. His face suddenly darkened. He stood up and strode to me, grabbed my hand and entered the bedroom. He firmly pressed me against the wall. This set of actions was so coherent. Before I could react, I saw his lips about to fall. I subconsciously slapped him. With a slap, it was crisp and loud. Rockey was slapped to the side. A red palm print appeared on his face. His voice was hoarse. We can't go back to the past, right? I was stunned. What was he going crazy about? In this situation, it's good that I can still live with him. And he still expects to go back to the past? Rockey lowered his eyes. Now money can solve all our problems? Does it mean that if I cheat again next time and give you money, you will forgive me? Haley, do you still love me? His tone contained accusations. It seemed that he was very disappointed in me. I understood in an instant. My calm attitude of settling things down after receiving money today made Rockey angry. Perhaps in his opinion, I should make a big fuss. It would be best to take a kitchen knife and cut Serena. Only then can I prove how important he is in my heart. My calmness didn't match his imagination of being caught cheating. I couldn't help laughing. What do you want me to do? You don't want a divorce when I make a fuss. You are unhappy when I don't make a fuss. Why are you so perverted? Rockey's half face was hidden in the shadow. His emotions were unclear. After a long while, his voice was hoarse. It was like making a promise to himself. Haley, I still love you very much. Trust me again. We can go back to the past. I shook my head. We can't go back. As long as Serena's child is still there, we can never go back between us. Firing Serena caused a big commotion. She didn't want to leave. When she was forcibly dragged out of the R group building by bodyguards, I just came back from negotiating outside. I her disheveled appearance. Serena was obviously already in a state of desperation. Looking at my eyes, anger instantly ignited. Haley, I am pregnant with your husband's child. Your husband just gave me $30,000 to send me away. He is the president of the R group. He spent $3 million on a Bentley, but he just gave me $30,000. Does he think I am a beggar? People around cast strange glances, but I didn't care. After all, it wasn't me who lost face and was gaff. After Rocky's credit cards were suspended, the $30,000 he gave Serena was probably all the money he collected from various small change. After all, he never had the habit of saving private money. I made a record of all the famous watches and luxury goods at home. In front of him, I instructed the nanny to count them regularly. If one was missing, I would call the police directly. Rockey couldn't sell any valuable things to compensate Serena either. I stood up straight and looked at Serena coldly. Do you understand the law? Even if it's $30,000, it's also the joint property of Rockey and me. He took it out and gave it to you privately. In terms of emotion, reason, and law, you should return it. I haven't pursued the luxury goods and cars that Rockey gave you. However, considering that you have worked at the R group, these things are considered rewards for you. Keep them and play with them. Serena's face turned pale. She shouted loudly, "You are talking about the law with me? Now illegitimate children are also protected by law. I will give birth to him. When the time comes, Rockey will still have to pay alimony." Looking at her furious appearance, I smiled and said casually, "Do as you please." Rockey had lost his shares and didn't own any real estate under his name. All real estate was registered under my name. Even if Serena wanted to make a fuss, she wouldn't get much money. Moreover, with Rockey's ruthlessness, if he could have the intention to kill me, then Serena's child probably won't be born either. A farce didn't affect my good mood of winning a big order. In the evening, I went to pick up Jack from kindergarten and went to a parent-child themed restaurant together. Rockey sent me a message. The picture was of Serena being firmly held down on the operating table. He was concise, aborted. I looked at Jack, who was playing with ocean balls. A chill ran down my spine. Until this moment, I completely saw the dark side of Rockey. The ruthlessness he showed made me terrified. The next day, for some reason, I was a little restless. As soon as it was 3:30 in the afternoon, I pushed open the office door and was about to pick up Jack. When Rockey saw this, he followed me. From today on, we will pick up Jack from school together and go home together. Haley, I will be a good husband and a good father. He repeated again. Slowly, we will definitely go back to how we were before. I didn't pay attention to him. After all, he was Jack's father. I had no reason to stop him from picking up the child. There were already many parents waiting at the kindergarten gate. When Jack's class was dismissed, I just picked him up. Suddenly someone shouted loudly behind me, "Be careful, run quickly." Accompanied by exclamations, a white BMW suddenly rushed towards me. I only felt a powerful force push me aside. In the chaos, I subconsciously used my body to protect Jack. Jack was crying loudly in my arms. When I came to my senses, Rockey had already fallen under the car. He hit his head and lost consciousness. His lower body was crushed by the front wheel of the BMW. It was a bloody mess. There were also other injured people to varying degrees around. Serena stumbled out of the driver's seat and was subdued to the ground by the security guard. Her face was pale and her hair was messy. She roared at me, "My child is dead. Why is your child still alive? Why?" Rockey survived, but he was paralyzed from the neck down. He needed a caregiver by his side for life. Serena was prosecuted for intentional homicide. The prison sentence starts from 20 years. I stood by Rockey's hospital bed and watched him collapse in despair. He screamed in pain and couldn't accept the fact that he was disabled. Finally, he calmed down. "Haley, I saved your life. You can't leave me and can't divorce me for the rest of your life." I was sitting by his hospital bed peeling an apple. "Your logic is very strange. If you didn't provoke Serena, how would I be in such danger?" Rockey was speechless. His gaze gradually became defeated. After a long while, he said, "You are right. This is my retribution." What I didn't say was, "It doesn't matter whether we get divorced or not now. Today's Rockey can't cause any waves anymore. I figured it out. A life with money but no love is no big deal. I took over everything of the R group. In the future, it will also be taken over by my only son Jack. My child will never repeat the fate of losing his mother, being lame, and being abandoned." Extra chapter *Jack. When Jack was 5 years old, He happily took home the trophy for first place in the children's group of the Go competition. Only then did he know that his mother was dead. He was still very young and didn't know what death meant. In the days that followed, he gradually understood what it meant for his mother to die. No one kissed his forehead before he went out. No one sang to him to lull him to sleep at night. No one patiently told him stories anymore. No one would pick him up and gently ask if it hurt when he fell. Dad was decadent for a long time. Before he was 7 years old, Jack was still willing to call Rocky Dad. Until that night, Jack, who had just started elementary school, saw Rocky drunk, holding his mother's photo and murmuring softly, "Why did you have to divorce? I already promised you to break off with the woman outside. It was you who forced me to kill you. Only when you are dead will you stay by my side obediently." Jack was stunned. The glass in his hand slipped because of shock. The warm milk splashed on the ground. Rocky turned his head. His eyes were sinister. "Jack, what did you hear?" Jack didn't dare to speak. Rocky gently smiled. "You are still young and don't understand. Dad did this because he loves Mom too much and had to do it. Understand?" From that day on, Jack never called Rocky Dad again. Later, the woman Rocky kept outside had already secretly given birth to a child. Jack accidentally saw Serena bring the child to the company. Rocky picked up that child and coaxed him, looking like a loving father. Serena was standing beside him, smiling serenely. The whole family was happy and harmonious. Jack hated Rocky even more. Mom was so gentle, kind, and full of tenacity. She could have had a very beautiful life. It was Rocky who took her life. And now, he could still hold an illegitimate child as if nothing had happened and enjoy family happiness. "Why?" Serena felt Jack's intense gaze. She turned her head and looked outside the glass door. She sneered at him contemptuously. Serena gave birth to one child after another. Finally, she waited until Jack's grandma nodded and married into Rocky's family, officially becoming Mrs. Rockey. On the day when 15-year-old Jack pushed Serena down the stairs, he also returned to Rocky's house. At first, Grandma who had fought for him didn't care much anymore. After all, she now had 3 more grandsons. Even when he was pushed onto the road by Serena's child and had a car accident, Rocky's family also took Serena's child's side. At this point, Jack had no nostalgia for his father Rocky's family. He vowed to make Rocky and Serena pay the price they deserved. Over the years, he had been fighting against the R group. As long as he was there, Rocky's family would not have an easy life. Until the time-travel back plan he invested in had a breakthrough. As one of the first batch of experimenters, he went back to the year when Haley was 23 years old, saw his young mother. Tears welled up and he knelt in front of her. "Mom." The first meeting couldn't last too long. The time machine was still being updated and iterated. The second time he traveled back and then came back. Everything around Jack gradually melted away. In a trance, he saw another 45-year-old himself. He became a university professor. His wife was recognized by his mother as the successor of the R group. Mom was smiling and holding her granddaughter, looking kind and peaceful. "That's great," Jack thought. "This is the life that Haley should have. A lifetime of peace and tranquility." The end. If you like Puppy's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.